begin the process of making recommendations. I don't believe we'll finish our recommendations tonight, and we'll talk to the town administrator this afternoon. We will take Tuesday off, which is what we've kind of always done, to allow people to gather any other information that we may need, and we look to finish up our entire budget process by next Thursday. And if any questions on that from the committee? I'll give you guys. Everybody's good with an additional meeting next Thursday? Kevin, Robert, Peter, Rob, you guys good with next Thursday?
I'm good.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, perfect. So, Chris, if you just want to pull up the budget and go to the recap page. I just want to make a couple of comments as I continually page through the budget.
Mike, can you share your screen with me?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Or Ron, give me the sharing screen privileges, please.
So
Yeah.
before we start, I'm not sure, through the selectmen's meeting last night, everyone knows that Mr. Laviolette has accepted a new position. And we wish him well with that, but we need you to finish this with us. So you can't leave before next Thursday, Chris?
Ed, I can't, sorry, Ed, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Could you speak directly to the microphone?
This microphone, no,
Should be.
So what I said, Chris, was I told everyone that you were leaving and wished you congratulations, but said you can't leave before anytime before at least next Thursday.
Oh, yeah, no worries, thank you.
But no, congratulations on your new life you'll be moving on to.
Well, thank you, I appreciate that. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you. So, as you can see on the screen, we still, if you just go to the bottom of it, Chris.
Sorry,
So 500,000 over the levy limit. I think the recommendations on the special articles are all from either free cash or another source, not a raise and appropriate at this time.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So, being $500,000 over is still a significant shortfall with all of the additional requests that we have in the budget. That, as I've said throughout the whole process, if you look at just the school budgets, they eat up all of our new revenue. And we basically, because where we stand, we don't have the ability, in the past it would be, the school budget request, we'd go back and forth and discuss with them to take the number down, but really the number is at 91,000 to them because of, as I said, last year's not raising and appropriating the 260,000 that we have to pay. It's kind of unfair, but this is going to be a tough budget as it comes to, I know, we do have some capital stabilization. We do have regular stabilization, a little bit of free cash will be left over after we talk about the special articles, but one time, if we use one-time funds, all it does is puts it off for a year. Hopefully some of the reimbursements and things that we have going forward would help to offset that. But I think as a group, we're going to have to make some really hard decisions that in the last few years, we really haven't had to make. I asked the selectmen if they'll go back and look at the budget. This is really a joint effort between the selectmen and the finance committee to make sure we're financially stable. And we really haven't heard from the selectmen on what you guys would recommend. The budget that was handed to us is a budget that is simply over the levy limit. And even with it is, some of it is departmental requests, but the recommendations handed from the Board of Selectmen to the Finance Committee don't take into account that we are over the levy limit. I've never been afraid to make the hard decisions, and this committee over the years has always been willing to make the hard decisions, but the hard decisions will be made, and it's always good to go in aligned with the Board of Selectmen when we go in the town meeting there's always those one or two things that we can never come to agreement on. and stand up on town meeting floor and have a discussion on it. But in generalities, and when it's $15,000 or $20,000, you can have those discomfort discussions. But when it's $500,000 over the levy limit at this point, based on what we're looking at, there's got to be some hard decisions, and people have to understand where people are coming from when we get to that point. So tonight we do have three of the bigger budgets to talk about. We have fire, police, treasurer collector, who controls a significant portion of the budget, with health insurance, where we're at with that. And we'll get through those, and then we can start making the recommendations that we feel really comfortable with. I know we want to have another discussion with Board of Health. I think Mr. Pius, I think I saw him on here earlier. And we told them, and I think I saw Todd come on, so we can further discuss Board of Health. I know there's a further discussion that wants to go on ADA. Mr. Gale has sent out some emails with some additional information, and we can talk about that. But and I know the Board of Selectmen has made some recommendations on special articles from last night, so we can have further discussion on that. So the goal again tonight is to be done by about 8:30 if we can, and then get as many of our recommendations done within that time frame. And then next week will be strictly to finalize our recommendations. So
If I could just add
Sure.
that the Board of
Mr. Jacob.
Selectmen is concerned about the budget, and we will listen to your recommendations, the FinCom's recommendations, and then we will review them again and have
awesome.
additional recommendations,
Perfect.
as
Thank you.
we've done in the past, but it's not been as serious as it is
Yeah,
right now.
yeah,
So we,
yeah.
I think we all understand how
Yeah.
serious it is.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions of the committee before we get into, I think the fire department is up first. Any questions of the committee? So I have one last thing, and before we get to the police budget, I just wanted on record that, it's not the fire, but I figured I'd do it at the beginning of the meeting, that just on record that my nephew is a reserve police officer. It will be not talked and strictly salary part on his part, but I just want it noted. So we talk about as we talk about the general budget, but if we got into individual personnel matters, I will step away from that. But so please note that. Okay. Chief, how are you? So Chris, if you want to pull up the fire department budget first. Chris, we will talk about your special article request too at the end.
What's that?
We'll talk about the special articles request at the end. All right. So if you just want to give us a brief overview, Chief, on the fire department budget.
So basically, I've basically level funded my budget, exception of the CPA increases on salary. The only line that you'll see that I have to increase on is the vacation and crime bio, since I have a number of officers higher. Other than that, there's no real.
So the CBA is finalized and signed?
Yes.
It is signed. Okay, okay. And is that, so that is the 1 year increase, or is that a compilation of any, can't think of the word. That's the 1 year, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chris, just a question. I'm kind of flipping back and forth between fire and ambulance, and just noticed the vacation sick buyback is the same on both. Are you still allocating payroll roughly 50% each?
You get that, Chris? You want he's toggling back and forth between the fire and the ambulance. So on the vacation buyback that you talked about in the fire department budget, is that allocated between the two because we're allocating it like 50-50?
Correct.
Yes, correct. Pete. So, oh, that's the ambulance one. Thanks, Chris. I was just gonna say, ask if you could jump to the ambulance. Okay, any questions on the fire department budget? Selectman? Do you have
I
anything?
don't have anything.
Actually, I do.
Mr. Hall?
Chief McGee, just one question. Do you have a forestry truck that is currently operational?
Three of it.
You have 3 of them.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Any questions from the committee? Any further questions, or just go to the special articles that the fire department is submit? Chris, did you have anything else on your budget lines before we talk about the special articles? Okay,
Unless somebody has a question, but I think it's pretty straightforward.
And I guess,
so if you want, yeah,
where they've removed the billing software. It's just, we're not paying anything for any software.
so why the line on software has been removed, Chris?
Line on software.
What line item is that, Pete?
5302 on the ambulance.
No, we move that to data processing department 155.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Yeah, that's that catch-all data processing line now. Okay.
Okay.
And that data processing falls under what department's responsible for that budget?
Town accountant,
Town
I believe, is that
okay.
correct, Chris?
Chris, so the data processing budget falls under the town accountant?
No, I think it's been either town administrator or the board of selectmen in the past, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We learn something every day, man. All right, so do you have the special articles on the fire?
So, yeah, Chris, would you be able to, so I can pull up, I sent them to the thing. Would you be able to pull up, the first part of the spreadsheet that shows the special articles
Sure.
spreadsheet?
Oh, yeah, there's a tab that says annual town meeting proposed
Oh,
special
shoot,
articles.
not that,
It's right, it's to the right, right there. Chris, you got it.
sorry, everyone, I think I'm looking in the wrong place right now.
That one.
It's right to the right of the FinCom meeting schedule on the tab. That one. There you go.
There we go, okay.
Thanks.
Everybody see that okay on your end?
Yep. So, let's see.
Article number 16.
Line number, that's Article 16, it's line number 6 on the spreadsheet. So I would assume, Chris, we're gonna put this as a special article year in and year out with the year 1 payment. So after we get it approved on the first year, it'll go as a special article year in and year out like we do with the ambulance. So earlier today, I had a discussion with the town administrator, and he had talked with the fire chief on this one, on moving it from a 7-year lease to a 10-year lease to reduce the annual cost of it. So I don't know if you wanted to talk to that, Mike or Chris.
So, I did a little more work behind the scenes this afternoon, and there's an option also for us to save another $16,120.62 on the truck if we choose to pay for, we choose to pay for it upfront. In other words, when we sign a contract to say we're gonna buy the truck, we enter into the lease purchase agreement. We pay that first year's lease purchase, and the bank that we get the Republic First National pays for the truck, Sandy gets their payment, and then they start building the truck. We save $16,000 by paying them 100% upfront, which also brings down each year's payment on the lease purchase. And then with that, they give us a performance bond to say that we're insured, so that way if Sandy goes out of business, if there's a fire in the factory, Dyson gets their money back. surplus from that.
So what would the first year payment number be?
It would be, if we go with the 10 years, we're looking at 78,122.36.
And that's with saving the $16,000? Okay, okay,
So if we didn't do that, you're looking at 78,834.04
okay,
on a 10-year lease purchase.
okay. So, Chris, can you just share with the committee what this truck would be replacing?
This truck replacing engine 3, which is a 1989 Maxim, devastation wall.
So I have a couple thoughts on this because I do believe we're gonna have to, at some point, utilize alternative funding to help us to balance the budget. So an item like this that is a significant, in the past few years, we never even had a capital stabilization account. That there are a couple of these items that are in here, such as large purchases, that maybe we look at utilizing capital for. And I defer to Robin on the capital to have a little more discussion on it, that we look at, instead of use, because we could use, we have enough free cash to fund the articles with just free cash, but I think when we get into our recommendations, I'd like to, we keep that on the table as a discussion topic. They are, certain things are truly capital, and, this one, the lease is for 10 years, it really is a capital. Something that's 3 to 5 years, yeah, maybe that, that falls under, but this really falls under a defined capital when it's something that's 10 years out.
If I could just make a comment, the disadvantage of a lease, I understand why we have to do a lease, but the disadvantage is it's going to cost us, not the town, $90,000 more versus just purchasing it. So I think it's very important that we keep as much money as we can in the capital stabilization and even put more money in it. I get it, we might not be able to do it this.
Yeah, oh
year,
yeah,
but
agreed.
It's, so I understand what we're going to do. It's going to be a tough year, and the next few years are going to be tough. But,
Yeah. But I think, and I'm with you, if when in the fall, when we get recertified free cash and we get any new free cash that we'll get back this year, our goal has always been to put a percentage of that in our stabilization account. And I think if we continue with that philosophy, then the goal is to always try and get it, the goal a few years ago was to put every dime that we had taken out of capital for the modulars at the school to get it back up to $1 million. We're not quite there, but, so I think it warrants some further discussion.
I will say too, that, just for you guys' information, that as of April 1st, the price of the truck went up 4%. So I was able to lock in at the price that we're currently at. So if we choose to table it, the increase on the truck is going to be another 4%. And I just don't think that's the right thing to do, personally.
Yeah.
And also, the interest rates are extremely low right now, as we're all aware, and just not knowing, they're already headed back up, slowly. So I just think that it's the right time to take advantage of what we have on the table.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah, it's just looking at the finance part of it.
Sure.
I think we all agree on the equipment piece of it. It's just, what's the best method for us to do it? I'd love to buy it straight out, Ken.
Yeah.
But I don't think we've done that on fire vehicles. Someone wanted to speak, Peter?
What is the, just so the number's out there, what is the number to buy it at straight?
What's the total cost if we bought it up front?
Yeah.
If we paid upfront, it would be $675,630.87.
So just for clarification, the reason the number that the chief just mentioned from the 691 was due to that $16,000.
Yep. So 675, Pete. So,
Thank you.
I mean, it'd be, we could wipe out the capital stabilization account one swoop. Unfortunately, we don't set up separate accounts like some of our sister towns do that, they have general fund money go into separate accounts so they can do that. We manage our budget a different way. Nancy?
What I found out with, now that I'm getting involved with pilot agreements, we could consider fall town meeting is to, pass the bylaw that pilot agreement money would go into capital stabilization account or stabilization, but put it in an account that it would, be tied up, because it's, you can't count on it for operating money. And we're front loading these pilot agreements so that the most money will come in the first 10 years. So it's something to think about, because we've got a very small one that got approved way back when. We've got two that have been approved. We haven't started paying yet, but those will be coming. And then we've got potential two coming up at the annual. Plus, I think I've got three, if they get a minute time, we can do it for the fall. That needs to go for approval. So we're gonna be talking money in the millions over a period of time, some are 15, some are 20 years. But if the money would be earmarked, that's one way, if you think about, if you're thinking about paying for this thing, we're gonna have income coming in, so.
I'll tell you my philosophy on that. If we were a town that had 20% of our development and taxes came from commercial, I would say that that's a good way to do it. But in reality, at this point today, any solar program that comes in is like having a new utility in town, and it benefits us from a commercial side. If we take and start separating that out, we continue to leave money that could help the residential side of the tax base. And I understand, I get it, because that's what Rehoboth does.
There's two parts to this. When I say a pilot agreement, I'm only talking personal property tax
Right.
on the panel. People that own the property are paying the commercial rate for real estate tax. So you've got tax money coming in, and then you've got the pilot money.
Yeah.
So it's,
Understood. It's no different than when a commercial business comes in and they have their real estate property taxes that they pay, but we also go in and they pay personal property tax on all of the equipment that they have in the building. So it is really the only commercial development we have coming in right now, for the most part, is solar projects. So it's a philosophical thing, because there are a lot of communities that do exactly what you just said. They set it aside for specific uses. I just think in the situation that we're in, and I could be wrong, but I just think in the situation that we're in from a commercial development standpoint, we're really just taking away money that we could utilize to continue to operate the town. That's my philosophy. If the Board of Selectmen choose to put, because it has to be a warrant article, the town has to vote on it to set up that account. I think it actually has to go through the legislature to set up.
I'm thinking it would be like when the town voted, I don't know, years ago, to designate all of the rollback taxes to the Conservation Commission, and they use that to acquire, wetlands or whatever.
I think that was that set up by, I'm not sure. It might have been set up.
Town meeting vote.
Was it? Yeah, but it was already state law, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, I think it's, I know that other communities do this.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, since if this, what's being talked about is a potential, obviously, you don't want to bring everything, but, there's a way, even if it's split, real estate taxes on this, on solar farms would go to operating, and, pilot money, which is
Yeah.
personal property. But
Yeah,
like you said,
yeah. I think I remember Rehoboth did it by, they had to do it by home rule petition, so it would take a little while.
mhm,
So,
Yeah, Mrs. Goulart and myself, we went to Carver, we saw their fire station. They built a brand new fire station,
people
bought
everything.
yeah,
They bought 3 fire engines, and this is what they do. They have a lot more commercial
Yeah.
business than
Yeah.
what Dayton will ever have.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
But,
it's something that we should think
Yeah.
about.
they built
Yeah, I
solar,
agree.
the solar farms paid for the library, the fire station, the fire trucks, and then building the police station.
Yeah.
I mean, we couldn't believe, and that's how they funded it. I mean, I realize we don't have that kind of income. All I'm saying is, we all agree we need money in capital stabilization. And this isn't tons and tons of money, and it's not a lump, it's coming over a period of time, but it's a way of thinking.
yeah, absolutely.
And if state reimbursement reimbursements, when we get through the nightmare we're in right now, and state reimbursements improve, and hopefully, other income improves, it's a way to set something aside to
Yeah.
put money back into that.
Yeah,
That's all I'm
totally
saying.
understood. It is a good idea. I wish our commercial tax base was about 15 or 20%, not like 7 or 3. Or potentially, so. Any questions of the committee on the fire department, on the fire department request? No, good, good, yeah, good. Thanks, chief. Police department, hi, chief. How are you? Chief, I wanted to delay you to about 8:30, so you can miss the draft.
You know what tonight is?
So,
It seems like every year we do this.
I do, you're right. I think we always end up on draft night. So, Chief, I did mention at the beginning that, so it was on record that my nephew was a reserve on the department, just so the public knows. So, Chief, do you just want to review, give us an overview of your budget, which is budget 210? As you know, I don't think you were here at the beginning, but this is we are really struggling from a financial standpoint. In reality, usually we say we're $1 million over and we have a way to go back to the schools and reduce. But even after the schools, this time we're still about $500,000 to $600,000 over the levy limit. There are some factors that have been built into that, but we're working through it. We're doing the best we can to provide what we can. And so we're going to have to come to some agreements on it. So in most cases, we've pushed back to everybody to be level funded. We know there are certain circumstances that's not going to happen, and there's reason for it. So just since yours have some increases above level funded, if you just want to talk about those and walk through it.
So, I don't know what budget you have in front of you, what you have, but what I'm looking for on, let me talk about lieutenant first. I'm looking to put a lieutenant in position for the department. Back, let's say a month ago, maybe, I sat with the board of selectmen. We talked about everything, different things. And then we came up, a salary was mentioned about a lieutenant, and the salary came up to $92,000 for the lieutenant's line. So if you're looking at my budget, if you look at the full-time officers line, I have 950,079.40, okay? But if you're looking over to what I'm requesting, I don't know what you have for a number there. What do you have for a number there?
So on which line is that, Chief?
On the full-time line.
Salary full-time officers?
Yeah.
We have
Okay,
$1,021,079.
yes, that's what I have here. I just want to show you
Yep.
that. So that would include 92,000 to a lieutenant, putting a lieutenant on. So that would be the total figure.
Yeah,
So-
we have a separate line.
And
for
I
the
want to do a
lieutenant.
separate line on that, which would be 5109, so that would be a separate line in lieutenant of 92,000. And then the full-time line would be 950,079.40, okay?
Oh, okay, so which is what the recommendation is over
Yes.
on the right-hand side.
Yes.
So you're reducing your request on salary full-timers from $1,021,000 to $950,000. So you're reducing that from $104,000 or $105,000
Yes.
request to about an $80,000
Yes.
request.
Yes. So looking at that, that's the thing that I talked about. The board, on the buyback, I left that level funded right now, 25,000. I felt that, it was gonna be, it was 54 last year, I believe, and I cut it down to 25,000 on that line. Overtime, it's was the same as it was last year, right now. The union is in negotiations, their contract ends June 30th. So they're gonna be in negotiations, it's started already, so, I don't know what's gonna happen with that when they, decide to sign or whatever the contract is gonna be. So I can't really say right now, for the overtime line, and I just level funded it right now, because I can't determine what will happen there. And in the bottom line there, I level funded everything down there. The only thing I put up there was the, uniform allowance.
So if I understand correct, so right now, the requested budget increase would change from 241 to 160? Mike, am I figuring that out right? Because we reduced line,
You're talking about the top?
I'm talking about on personnel expenses. Right now, it shows an increase of, on the request, 241,043. But that includes the entire amount of 117 and 99. The lieutenant now would be 92, so there's -7 from that 241, that's 234. And then the increase on the full-time line was $70,000 less than that. So that brings that down to about 170, 160 on the total increase on the personnel expenses. Peter, you're always good at following my numbers, so am I right?
I think it's an increase over the current budget of 133,022.
133, is that what you show, chief?
Where are you on?
On personnel expenses
Yep.
total,
Yep.
increase request over current budget is 133,000?
Yeah, I think, Chris, you have that in,
Yeah, I just did a formula there on the worksheet for everybody's to see.
okay.
Thanks, Chris. So it's not 241, so really so from our 500,000 that we're on the front page right now, we're down to 400,000.
Yeah, 108 off of that.
That's a good one. So.
So,
Go ahead, Pete.
and I'm just making sure I'm following this too. So overall officer pay, we're going from the current year at 960 to next year at 950 plus the 92, 1042.
Yes.
And that's from the prior year into the current year, we added an officer.
Do you get that, chief? You wanted that? Yeah, I think he asked from the prior year, we added from FY 20 to FY 21, we added a full-time officer.
Yes.
Yes, Peter.
Okay, and then we'll add a lieutenant then in 22.
Yes.
And another additional officer or just a lieutenant?
No, would it be an additional officer and a lieutenant?
Yeah, so it's two positions, Pete.
Two positions in this year?
Two positions in this year, yeah.
No,
No,
you're looking at one additional patrolman for this year.
Yeah.
This new budget coming up.
FY 22,
Yes,
plus a lieutenant.
and lieutenant.
Yeah, so it's two positions. Yeah, two
Well,
positions.
Basically, it could be two, but you could say one because it's gonna be someone within the department of lieutenant. Right, Mike?
So are you still,
So we have to separate out a few things here. Number one, in the full-time officer, from what I understand, that full-time line officer salary that's being at the 950, that includes funding for the officers that we actually currently have, plus the officer whose position is being funded, that position began to be funded in FY 20, and that was held last year, so we're finally funding that position.
right,
There's no additional actually patrolman officer positions being funded in the 950,000. In the 1.02 million, the chief was actually proposing to hire another position.
Right.
And that was actually reduced by the board of selectmen.
All right, so, all right, I'm still trying to, so
Sorry.
total number of police officers, including yourself, not reserved, full-time police officers, we have in the department at the beginning of, or positions that we have funded at the beginning in this current fiscal year. What do we have? How many do we have?
Well, let's put it this way, I'm gonna say what we lost. So Sergeant Burke retired.
Yep,
That's a vacancy.
yep,
I had, there's another vacancy where you approved me for a man last
yep,
year.
yep,
It wasn't filled due to COVID. It was due to no academies were open at the time because of this pandemic that started. So those are two.
so there's,
positions
those are
that-
two vacant positions currently.
Yes, that I have to fill.
Okay,
which
okay.
I'm gonna fill.
Okay,
And then I'm looking for an additional man for this new budget coming up. And the lieutenant.
just, and a lieutenant, so it'd be, so you have two vacancies, and then you're gonna have two more positions. So you'll have, if approved,
Yes,
at the beginning of FY '22, there's a potential that you'll have 4 openings.
yes, it could.
Yeah, could be. I mean, I'm assuming you're probably gonna fill some of the stuff that you have open in the
Yes,
next
it
2
could,
months or
but-
whatever, yeah. But it would be a total of 4.
Because if you take a lieutenant, if I come on a lieutenant in the department, which it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
Okay, that's when he's gonna move to lieutenant, okay? Then we have that other position, patrolman, that I wanna put on. So you're not really talking 2, you're talking 1.
I'm not following. God, that's it.
So, right now in this budget, is there a position that's been budgeted that hasn't been filled?
Yes, 2.
No, don't say me two, let's get one at a time.
No,
There was a patrolman who is
Yeah.
budgeted in
Yeah.
here, but we didn't hire anybody.
Correct.
We have Sergeant of Work who has retired.
Yeah.
So that's also budgeted.
Yeah.
So those are new positions. They
Correct.
are not new budget.
Right.
So for the upcoming year, we have a lieutenant that's new. And are you asking for an additional patrolman for the new budget or not?
Yes.
All right, so there's 2.
yeah, okay.
Thank you, Nancy.
What did when that was proposed, what was the selectmen's discussion on that? And I know Brett sat through earlier budget as quote, his interim TA that he chose to do, or when you guys went through your budget hearings, can you fill us in what your recommendation was as part of your,
I know that we had recommended a lieutenant, and we actually reduced the request that the chief had asked for as far
Okay.
as the salary. And I don't remember much discussion about a new patrolman, to be quite.
Yeah, and my note just says, yeah, the lieutenant, we said, okay. And we discussed the other one. We didn't approve the other one, but mine is taken under advisement because we wanted to have the chief come in and explain to us what we're hearing tonight.
so I have a question on that overall of adding the additional, just explain to us why you feel we need to add another patrolman at this time. I get adding a lieutenant's position and creating
Okay,
a
yeah.
hierarchy and all that, and unless somebody else on the board has a question on that. But what does that do?
So what happens then is, the reason I'm going for that is, I have an SRO who's at the school full-time, so he's not on patrol unless we need him. We have a full-time detective now, he doesn't patrol, he'll answer calls if we need him to do that. Right now, midnight to 8 is still being run by only 2 officers on the shift. There's three guys on that shift, but one of them would have 2 days off, so, and then you'd have 2 guys on. So if we put this additional man on, we're gonna have coverage for every shift for at least 3 men on each shift. That'll cover. Instead of having 2 guys on the shift, we'll have 3
So,
at all times. So my reason behind that is, the town's growing, we're talking about developments and stuff. Reform bill is out now. That could be a problem down the road because they might do away with reserves. So what happens is reserves would have to go to a bridge academy, it's called. So they're gonna have to do like 200 hours of training Where right now, all they do is they go to like an in-service in Taunton, we do it with Taunton. So those guys will go, the in-service training, whatever they have to do, and then they're done. But if you keep reserves, and which probably it's gonna do away with reserves, they have to go to, like I said, a bridge academy. That's over $200. These reserves have full-time jobs, so they're not gonna have time to do all this training just to be a reserve. So this is what I'm looking down the road. That's why I'm requesting if we could, if it's possible, here another officer.
Any questions of the committee on that? So I have a question, Chief, because you know the financial situation that we're in. If we were to say to you, it's on our priority list to fulfill your request, but until we have our final numbers for, and when we go into the fall, that we know, if growth comes in higher than the projected 225, free cash comes back, and we see that we have, if you had to prioritize which of those two positions to get funded up front and not have to wait on, which one would it be? Would you wait to reorganize and add the lieutenant later on, and hire a patrolman, or would you rather reorganize with a lieutenant and only one patrolman to backfill the one from last year and the sergeant?
I'd like to do lieutenant.
Lieutenant,
It's not, yes.
okay,
It's time, because right now, it's the chief in this department, it's chief, then it's sergeants. So the sergeants right now, we got two. And right now, they're in the same union as the patrolmen's union. So they're in a bad spot, they're in the middle. So they want to back me in certain things, but they have to back the patrolman because they're in their union. So, and I understand that point, that they can't do that. I get it. But a lieutenant, he will not be in the union. In that position, that was discussed with the board. He won't be in that union. He'll be under me, and a job description was set up. We have that done. What his duties are. So looking at this, if I need to wait in fall, if it can happen on that second guy, because it's two vacancies, like
Yeah.
blue lots.
yeah, yeah.
That's we can do that, and then maybe look down if that's what.
Yeah, so
feel
We're,
that.
we're gonna leave it on your request right now with the
Yeah.
133,
Yeah.
see where we come out, but it's good to know what your philosophy is.
Sure.
That, hey, if we can do it, we understand what you're trying to do, we get it, but we just want to be able to have some flexibility.
It should be, should be done.
Yep. Yeah, and it's understood, I'm glad you explained that, adding a
Yeah,
third night
that's-
shift guy and,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm supporting the chief on this, that I do feel that you need a lieutenant. If we have to hold off on anything, it would be the patrolman, because he already has a budget for hiring a patrolman anyway.
Yeah.
So if there's anything we have to cut out
Yeah.
at this time, it
Okay,
would be the patrolman. But
all right, thanks, chief.
I'm in full support.
Any-
Two questions on that. One, so if we were to hold off on the patrolman, roughly what would that save us, Bob?
You say money wise?
Yeah,
Yes.
money-wise.
That patrolman, makes $29.16 an hour. And then it's, weekly is about $1,088 a week. That's somebody that if we put on, doesn't have any
Yeah.
education.
So it's about 40, it's probably between 40 and 50 when you
Okay.
look at it at the bottom line. Because the other one's 92, the increase is 133, so it's probably about 40, Pete.
Okay,
That's what I would say. I wouldn't want to take it all out.
You
Yeah.
know that It depends, like I said, it depends if you hire, whoever you hire. It's education.
and where you're looking to fill some of the older back spots anyway, I can't imagine that at the beginning of the year, you'd be able to fill all three at one time anyway?
I think the question is, do you plan on filling the two that you have now, the retirement and the other one before the end of this fiscal year?
It's already in the works, yeah.
It's already in the works.
Yep.
So the pay that's already in there, Pete. Now, here's the last question is, if someone gets promoted to sergeant from within, they're gonna come in at a lower rate than we were paying Sergeant McGuirk, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and the thing is, right now, I'm glad you mentioned that, the sergeant exam, which we give, I'm probably gonna do that in the fall. Because in discussion with the PA Mike and, but we, it's, you know, it's a negotiation in the contract, and there's certain things that I wanna put in there that I'd like to see before before we do this.
so being down a sergeant, because it's always, you had a sergeant on every shift. How does that, now, does someone act as temporary? Do you appoint someone as a temporary sergeant in the interim until you do the exam? Is that, I don't know how it works, I'm
You
asking.
could do that, but right now, how it's working at is, I have a day sergeant and I have a 4 to midnight sergeant. Midnight day doesn't have a supervisor. That, it's patrolman, but they get OIC pay, officer in charge.
Officer, okay,
So they're basically, considered, you know, a sergeant. but
Yeah,
not gonna get
okay,
sergeant pay.
okay.
They're getting extra money to oversee the shift.
I think that really was my question, that there's somebody in charge on that other shift, so they do.
Yeah, they are.
Okay, okay. Any questions of the committee?
And I've got one more.
Go, Pete.
So the overtime looks like for this year is down considerably, but I'm going to assume that's probably COVID related. We're probably getting reimbursed something in there.
Overtime.
No, we haven't got any COVID reimbursement on overtime for the police department. It would have to be a direct response to the COVID, unless the chief were backfilling for someone who was out on COVID. We wouldn't get reimbursement at all for any overtime costs right now.
Did you have any guys, did you have to use overtime when guys were out on COVID?
Not much.
Not much, okay, okay.
Will
Lucky.
overtime be down for this year?
Overtime?
Yeah, it's,
What line is that?
5110, right, no, 5131. It's currently at 116. That's through when, Chris? Well, 133, that's through 331, Chris?
Yeah, that's all right now, but I can tell you the next 2 months, overtime's gonna go through the roof.
Oh, you get,
Because I have guys that have time on the book still, and then they're gonna take the time off. And then overtime's gonna be high, so that's gonna go up next 2 months.
So-
It happens every year.
yeah, Chris, can you do us a favor for our meeting for next week? Can you pull for us what overtime was for April, May, and June last year? So we can understand, as we look at the budget, what percent of our overtime is spent during that last quarter because of built up time off that guys will take as we get into the summer?
Sure.
I think that might answer the question, Pete.
Yes.
Yeah, so we'll take a look at that. And I think that's probably a good exercise to do. Do you have the same problem, Chief? Fire? Yeah, so on our 3 large departments, Chris, between, the 3 large budget, large number of people, our highway, fire, and police, can we take a look at that, see what percentage of our overtime is spent in April, May, and June versus the rest of the year?
Absolutely. We can definitely do that. I can definitely do that.
The overtime for the police department, these guys can work any overtime, if someone taking a holiday, personal day, vacation day, a sick day, so they all have first rights of working this. So overtime, it'll go up, I'm telling you.
Yeah, no, that's why for us, for a budgeting standpoint, we'll get a better handle on it, because if it's consistently that way every year, we can start to manage it a little better. Yeah, awesome, thank you.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a little skewed though, because last year they were able to buy back some of their vacation. They didn't lose it, and they didn't take it because of the pandemic, so we may not see it reflected in overtime. So they didn't take the vacation, didn't cause any overtime, and they bought back, they got money for the
Yeah,
time.
we'll look at it, and then if it doesn't make sense, we can go back another year. So we could look at a 3-year trend on it at some point. I'll leave that in the town accountant, town administrator's hands to try and look that up, and it's probably a good exercise for us to know. So, any other questions of the police chief? Oh, you have other budgets too. Forgot about your other budgets. We only went through police. You have communication,
Yeah.
harbor master. No, we talked to Ron last
I
week.
talked to him about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I had talked to him too, and,
We did.
you want communication now?
Yep, go ahead, Bruce.
Okay, so nothing was really changed here. They don't have a contract right now. They're in the process of changing unions. I talked to Paul Reed about it, and he said that just wait to get a letter from one of the unions to let them go so they can join another union. So they're still waiting on that. They got no word on anything, or heard anything on that. So basically, it's been level funded right now.
Okay.
Okay.
Town administrator, do you know what union they're talking, who are they with currently? Which union?
David,
Citizens
what's
Clerical.
his name?
Same as which one?
I think it's
Labor
Citizens
is-
Clerical,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Clerical, yeah.
That's where they're at now?
Correct, Mrs. Blumer.
And now they're probably looking at the same one that, there's a group now that takes all of the smaller unions, the smaller groups.
They're just waiting, like I said, they're waiting on some letter to tell them that they can go to another unit,
Okay.
but they haven't got that yet.
Okay.
It's been a while because the contract ended last fiscal year,
Yeah, they
and that's when you
contracted,
decertify your union. So you should have had an answer by
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, so, okay. Any questions on communication? It's a level funded budget, so there's no increases to it.
So this one's probably gonna have to come back in.
It will have to come back in the fall.
CPA settled and.
Yeah.
Because they would have a year already in retro.
Yeah.
Plus you got a budget for the year that you're in.
Yeah. And they
One-
haven't
one's
decided
like-
anything yet.
Yeah, ones like that is, I talked to the town administrator earlier today. Those are not the big things that in the budget that, when you look at our overall salary increases over the last few years, they're not these gaping, gonna cost us $100,000 there. So, you know, that's something we can look at fixing in the fall and working our way through, so.
Yeah.
Any questions on that? No? That's pretty simple. Chief, you have any, so you have one special article?
Yeah, one, yeah, that's it. And of course, you know what it is.
Yeah. So last week I asked the town administrator, I don't know if we got to the police chief for a current list of vehicles and the update. You usually provide us with an update on the vehicles and the miles, and do you have that?
I don't, I'm sorry.
Can you get that for us for next week?
I can get it for you, but I can tell you that there's several cars that are way over miles, okay? So, but I will get that with you and supply that for you guys, but, they are kind of high, a lot of them.
So I know last year we funded 2 vehicles. One was the pickup truck and one was another.
Utility.
The utility, was that a replacement, or we did the replacement plus the utility? Because I thought at the end of the day, we actually did a total, we had the vehicle that was,
Damaged, right?
total, right? So we supplemented what we got from insurance for it for that one. Then we did another utility and a pickup, or no?
You did, just the utility and a pickup truck.
Just one utility, one pickup?
Yes.
And the utility replaced the one that was total?
Total.
Okay.
So what I'll do is I'll get how many cars we got, the mileage on
Yeah.
every one of them, and, get it to you.
Yeah, and then the 62,000 that's in there, that's for one vehicle,
Yes.
one utility vehicle,
One,
same.
yes.
So we're still looking at, I don't know, Ford's, is that what it is?
Yeah,
Ford?
we're still looking at Ford.
So we're not looking at going back to cars?
We thought about cars, we thought about, it's not a Ford, it's, something else, but, I mean, we can look into that and see what's
So,
out there. And
so,
I know Ryan Richard, who takes care of cars, has talked about going, no, instead of a Ford, go to something else, so I
Well-
can sit down with him and.
yeah, my question right now is it, if we funded it now, when are we actually gonna get it? Because the availability of vehicles currently is not high. You can't get anything right now. So I'd like to, if you can have Ryan look into the timing, because if it's something that we're not gonna get until next February,
And like I said, sometimes, I'll be honest with you, the pickup truck we got first,
yeah,
and then the utility was like a month and a half,
Yeah,
2 months after.
yeah. So
Yeah, it's a while.
if you can have Ryan look and see what the the length of time it's taking to get a vehicle right now, that would help us because we may say, hey, we'll commit to it, but we want to see what free cash comes in the fall. But, so if you can have him look into that.
I will.
All right, thank you. Any questions on the vehicles? I know, Kevin, you're a registered vehicle expert.
No, I mean, I heard as much as I could about it. I mean, there's a request for another vehicle. I mean, 60, what is it, 60 something,
Yeah,
62, 8? And I might have missed something. Is this just a cruiser or an SUV?
SUV. Yeah,
SUV?
my question, Kevin, was to the chief to go back and find out what is the length of time to get vehicles now?
I experienced that myself today. There's a lot of problems with the pipeline right now on inventory. Even for my company, I had to purchase another couple pickup trucks, and it's far and few. It's very slow to get stuff right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you had something pre-ordered, that's different. But if you didn't, stuff is becoming pretty difficult right now. The pipeline's starting to dry up.
Yeah, so, okay, all right, so if you can have Ryan just look into that, that'll help us as we finalize things for next week.
Yep.
All right, thanks, chief. Anybody else?
I'm here. This is Mary.
Oh, hi, Mary.
Hello, how are you?
How are you? Jeez, it's been a long time.
I'm good.
Good.
I know.
All right,
I'm
so
in
next up-
Maryland, so
You're in Maryland. That's a
I
good
am.
place.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to pull up the treasurer budget? Chris, I think you have it up now.
Yeah, the treasurers, the only thing I decreased travel because there's no meetings that I've been going to. And everything's Zoom now, so that was a good thing. And then my office supplies, I went up because of the desks that we ordered for, our new offices. And that's about it. Everything everybody gets 2%, but calculations doesn't look that way because of the longevity, but everybody's getting 2%.
So I have to ask this question. With the potential of you potentially retiring, I'm not saying you are, potentially, should there be money in the buyback line?
There would be,
There would be,
yes.
but you did not put in for them here?
Well, for buyback, well, no, there's nobody that's due for buyback,
Okay,
because
Okay.
Helen was, left, she retired, but the girls that I have now, it's not available to them yet.
okay. Okay. Any questions on the treasurer budget before we move to the collector budget? 146. Pretty similar
146.
there.
The only thing I have on that is my rental and lease that I have. I got a new postage machine and the lease went up. So I'm going to need like $200 more in that budget. I only budgeted $3,000, but I will be short if I have, it's going to be like 32. So $2,200 I need in that budget.
All
So I
right,
have to
so,
increase that budget.
so Chris, can we change that to 3,200 on the FY
On
20?
the request, sure. Mary, do you need to have it done to both budgets, both?
Mary, is that just under the collector budget?
Yeah, that's just for the
Oh,
collectors.
sorry,
Yep.
okay, yep, got it.
So,
Okay.
Mary, we'll plug it in here, but just as a follow-up, can you send an email to Chris tomorrow confirming that request? So it's on,
Absolutely.
so it's documented.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any
About
questions
it
on
on
the collector budget from any of the members? Which one you want to go to next, man? Health insurance? Tax
Oh
title?
God, health insurance. Yep, my favorite.
All right, we'll do tax title first. How's that? That's a short one.
Okay, okay. Tax title. Okay, so I haven't done my takings yet. I'm doing next month. So I don't know what that will be. That probably, if need be, could probably be reduced.
Okay.
If
Yeah, 'cause it
if you
looks like
need,
yeah, it looks like we've only spent 4,200 and 3,400 the previous two. and we
right.
3,100 year to date.
Right. Like I said, my take into my advertisement, I do next month. But it's not gonna be 16,000. So I probably can reduce that if you need to cut back on a line, I could probably reduce that one.
I'm gonna tell you, it's gonna be a yes this year on that. Any money, any
Okay.
department offers up to turn back is 99.99% a yes.
Okay,
All
okay,
right?
yep. Okay, and then, so the debt is the debt. So the health insurance, I have to say, so it's gone down, as you can see. So
just
last
one-
year I budgeted,
Just 1 second, so just so we're
okay,
it's all aligned on the debt part.
right,
The total police communication building, short and long-term debt for this year, do you know what the total number is? It's not 235,
No, you get, it's 235
Right. plus the other piece.
the
which-
interest,
plus the interest.
Yeah, the interest.
plus the interest, which would be on the next,
Total is
So-
379, 675.
Okay. All right, so as we have done in the last couple of years ago, we will raise and appropriate fund it with the understanding that the first thing out of free cash in the fall is to reduce the debt on the police station. That is
okay,
that's what we've done on the last couple of years, and that is, I'm hoping that we can continue to do that.
that'd be great. Mm-hmm.
Any questions on that debt stuff, Pete, Robert, Kevin?
Just one question. You might not know off the top. How many years in are we? Is this 4?
At this, I don't have it in front of me because I'm away, but
No,
I think it's the third or the fourth. I think the third.
I think it's the
No,
third.
fiscal 22 will be the 4th year that you're into the debt service right now.
It is, fourth year. Okay.
Okay,
I think no one else might know this either because I only talked to Mallory about this, but there's a prepayment penalty for the first 7 years?
I don't know that.
Yeah, okay.
Only
I
if
don't know
that's
that.
only if that's by agreement, Peter. That would be really unusual for there to be a prepayment penalty unless we got some additional premium not to do a callback or a pay down in advance.
There was something in the document because Mallory had originally talked about trying to work off extra years each year. And there was something in the document that we couldn't do it until year 7.
That would be pretty standard fare because you don't want to, the bond, it's to the detriment of the bondholders if we attempt to pay down early.
Right.
Okay.
All set, Pete?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So if you want to move on those, Chris.
Oh, sorry.
that's fine.
Everybody good on the interest?
Yep. We like this page.
Let's go.
Now the one Mary really likes to talk to.
So it went down, as you can see, and hopefully it's going to be okay. But last year I budgeted for 5% because I didn't have the rate, and it only ended up being 2%. So I was advised just to keep it in there like it was last year. This year it came in again at 2%, so it's like more of a realistic figure here. But that's why it went down.
That's good. So Mary, based on that, I know you're away. When you get back, can you take a look, like Chris has the actual expenditures through March of 813,000, which left 400,000 left. Can you
Yep,
kind of figure out what the turnback will be at the end of the year on that?
I can.
Because
Yeah.
obviously if you raised it by 5% last year, there will be some turnback on that at the end of the year.
Right. Okay, I can do that.
Okay. I'm assuming it's probably gonna be close to $100,000 based on what we've spent through 9 months.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people retired this year too. 2 people.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nancy.
Mary, it's Nancy. We had
Hi, Nancy.
a free month. Did both the town and the employees benefit or just the employees?
The retirees also.
Okay, so we saved a month's premium.
Oh,
We did.
which
we
will
did.
be Out of that turn
Turn
back, so that should be.
Yeah.
good.
okay.
Yep.
Great.
We had a premium holiday actually this month.
Oh, it's this month? Yeah, so that shows where it'll be. That's good. Well, that helps. That's 1/4 of the free cash that'll come back to pay the police note this year. So,
That'd be great.
yep. Okay. Any questions on health insurance? We like negative budgets, man.
Usually doesn't happen.
It's minimal. Is there any other budgets, Mary, that you need to talk about?
Nope, that's all I have.
Any questions on the budgets that fall under the treasurer and collector? Yes.
She's not gonna talk about OPEB, don't we hear
Oh,
about that?
Mary, you know what?
Well, I always
where-
budget for OPEB, you know that.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thanks for bringing it up, Nance. Where is that? You're at 35,000?
Yeah.
So,
I asked for 50.
Yeah, it's at 35 in the departmental request. So,
Yep.
you weren't here at the beginning of the meeting, so I'll give the abbreviated version. This
Okay.
is a very difficult financial year. I know we've done a really good job and we are ahead of the curve on trying to fund this. If we had to, just like we had the free month of healthcare that was given, if the FinCon recommends we take the 1 year off of putting this money in with our continued commitment when free cash comes in to do something in the fall, it may come to that.
Okay, I just wanted to tell you one thing. When we met with our auditors and the person that does our OPEB, we had to make a commitment, and Chris, you were on that meeting, of 125 a year. That was like to have a nice trend. So as long as we can do something like that, to make sure that we put in 125 for the next 5 years is what they recommended.
That's great, but I would have to believe that we're not the only town that in some years, it's just not feasible. And if you need the selectmen and the town administrator and the FinCom to go to that group, we'll go and talk to them and ask them what on our regular term, but tell them to go to the state and ask the state to supply us with additional funding. But I'm just saying, we are committed to it. We have been for many years, and I'm sure that the other towns that are in that group are probably not in the OPEB situation that we've put ourselves in with the amount of money that we've committed to it so far. So we know it's important.
Mhm. Right.
We know it's a liability. Luckily for us, and really because of what we've done in the past, it hasn't affected, it didn't affect us going out to bond for the police station, nor has it affected any of our construction bonding. So, but just know that we may have to,
Cut that.
take 25,000 out of this on the budget side, and then when we get free cash in the fall, we'll make every effort to make that up. But I just didn't want you to be surprised if we didn't fully fund the request.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. Thank you for your understanding.
Hey, you've always supported it, Ed, always.
So, any questions on that? I know, Pete, we always have OPEB discussions.
Yeah, if anything, this might be the year that we have to wait.
And we know every time we delay something, it does put us further behind when we go out and do what it's gonna cost us long term, but it's just, it's how the numbers may fall.
Right.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So now some general budget review. I know, let's see, Tom, you're still here. Is Todd still here? But Tom, are you here? I know
Yeah, I'm here. Todd's not here.
Okay, okay. So, we received, your information. we understand the request. We understand the need for additional hours. We're not going to get into the discussion of what the health agent gets paid. That's really beyond our purview. We will recommend a financial number based on and then if afterwards the Board of Selectmen agree on a different pay, it can be backfilled later on because there'll be enough money in the budget to get to October, and the budget will never fall into a deficit. The rate of that is between the Board of Health, the Board of Selectmen, and the health agent. I think we believe in the value that he has provided to the town. And we fully support those additional hours that you requested. But from a funding standpoint and the pay rate, that has to be negotiated with the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Health. That's not, it's not a statutory rate set by town meeting, unless someone corrects me and tells me I'm wrong on that. It is not a rate that is set by town meeting. The control of that budget falls under the townspeople, and the townspeople could vote a higher number than what we recommend, but that would not change what the pay rate for that person is. I don't believe it's a position that is set that way. Someone could correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know, Mr. Administrator?
No, it's not.
Yeah, so, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that, Tom?
Well, I don't really. I think the documentation I've submitted along with the salary survey speaks for itself. I'm just a little disappointed that there hasn't been fair and equitable treatment to all employees who are non-union. The 2% that I'm looking at granted to the health agent is far less than what the position calls for. And when I see, I don't know what's going to happen as far as a recommendation.
Are you on?
As far as your recommendation for certain employees who received a 33% raise, you know,
Tom, I think you're missing my point. I don't think we disagree with you. We just don't think the proper format for the negotiation of what the rate to be paid to the health agent is the responsibility of the finance committee.
I understand that.
Okay, I just want you to know, we're not disagreeing that we think there should be additional hours and his rate based on those numbers that you provided us. We're not taking a stand on that. We believe that that's outside what we should be doing. If you're asking for 70,000 and we financially believe that that's what should be in the budget, that still doesn't change what the health agent is paid. You understand what I'm saying? We could recommend the number that you put in. That still doesn't change the amount of money that's paid to the health agent. You understand? Do you get what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I guess we need to set up a meeting with the Board of Selectmen then and try to renegotiate a wage that's consistent with his knowledge and abilities.
And we agree with you on that.
So I'm sitting here and I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, okay, okay.
So
We won't make our final recommendations until next Thursday. So knowing what you know now, maybe have some discussion before then and we can come up with a better number that I said it at the beginning of the meeting, some tough decisions are to be made, but we want to be aligned. So we are asking that you have those discussions with the Board of Selectmen sometime over the next week and try and come to an agreement. And if you can't, it's still at the end of the day, we will make a recommendation of funding on what's submitted to us. It may be the number that you come up with, it may be the number that the Board of Selectmen come up with. It still doesn't change what the salary is unless the Board of Selectmen agree to it. That is not a town meeting vote, unless it becomes a bylaw position that has a salary approved at town meeting.
Yeah, what we were hoping for is the $70,000 number so we could get started on a contract for the health agent. But it looks like that isn't happening.
The problem is, Tom, in our system of government, the way we're set up, that's kind of the backwards way. That would be like if you look at all of our budgets, when it comes to outside of leadership positions, we don't fund raises for a position until they are agreed upon. If you look at, that's why we're negotiating with the police union, and it's not in there. And communications hasn't had theirs in 2 years because they don't have an agreed upon contract. We, under the way we are set up, do not put raises in until they're approved. That's why we have so many retroactive payments, and we could technically have that. If you think about when we set up the town administrator, we set up a number in a budget, but that number is not final until that contract's negotiated with, and it could have been higher when we had our last TA as our first TA. It could have been higher than what was budgeted and would have gone back to town meeting to ask for additional funds. That's why I'm saying whether we budgeted at 60, we budgeted at 70, we budgeted at 50, it still has to be negotiated with the Board of Selectmen. And if we budgeted at 50 and it comes out that it's actually 70, in the fall, we're going to have to adjust that budget.
Well, I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
I mean, let me just finish.
Well,
Tom, over time, this finance committee's been put in a position to make a determination by putting extra money in personnel and really handcuffing the Board of Selectmen. And I don't want to be in that position. For many years, we didn't have a town administrator. We did a lot of things that finance committees, really, it's not our role, but because of the way we were structured and not having professionalized government, we made decisions at finance committees that in some cases are really outside the purview. And that's why we have a role of a town administrator to work through those issues, bring them for the finance committee to make a solid recommendation that funds what it is. It shouldn't be the finance committee making a determination that we add additional hours to any department. We don't set the rate. We can say, yeah, we agree 40 hours and you tell us what that number is, that 40 hours based on what the agreed upon number is. If currently the agreed upon number was $20 an hour, we fund it at $20 an hour. We don't fund any more, any less. If the agreed upon number is 50 or it goes to 30, then we talk about how we're going to fund it. But I think we agree that the position should be a 40-hour position and would support that based on what it costs us currently for a 40-hour position. If the salary needs to go up further, that has to be agreed upon between the Board of Selectmen and Board of Health and that personnel.
I get it. Yep.
So.
Is there anything else in the budget they had questions on?
If I could just make a comment.
Mr. Pacheco.
The Board of Selectmen, maybe 6 or 7 weeks ago, met with the Board of Health, and at that time, I felt it was not appropriate that we do it because of our fiscal situation. It's something that I said that we should look at in the future. but not at the present time. So, I mean, he can reschedule another hearing before the select, Board of Selectmen, but
Yeah. So I'm not saying, Tom, that we're not going to recommend the funding request that you had, because we always look at the department's request, the selectmen's input. And, you know, we're not saying that we're not going to fund that request, but in order, and I'll defer to the town accountant cannot allocate that fund for the town treasurer to do payroll at a different rate than is agreed upon by the Board of Selectmen. Whether there's $70,000 in there or $170,000. Am I correct, Chris?
Yeah, just be, you know, we don't, you can budget whatever number you want, but as long as there's an agreement that says something different, we have to go by the agreement. So if you wanted to put more in the budget, I still have to go by whatever the agreement is between the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Health, and the health agent.
Right. I just want that clear, Tom, that we're not setting a rate. We're just setting the amount of money that's in the budget. And it could possibly be what you requested, but it can't be spent without that agreement. I just want everybody to know that we're not setting the rate. We are setting the amount of money that's in the budget. And if we underfund the budget, we will correct that in the fall.
Question though, our first request was at $70,000. As the budget process went through, we resubmitted another request at $55,000 as we were instructed or asked to do, or they would do it. And subsequently, after we've seen that people were getting more than 2%, we requested a reconsideration of our first budget, which was $70,000. Department.
So I can ask you a question that you're probably going to get mad at me about, Tom.
No, I'm not going to get mad at you.
Okay.
I'm a little frustrated because I don't see where the fairness and equity is.
Well, wait, is this request based on the need of the town and the requirements that are necessary to the town? Or is this because somebody else got something and this person didn't get something?
If I didn't think the town was going to benefit from this request, I would not be here going forward with this tonight.
All right, but I don't want to hear, I get very frustrated when I hear, well, this person got something. This is, the budget process is not to pit this person against that person against that person. And it's very frustrating because we look at it from a very black and white area, and it's not just because this person got something, this person deserves something. That's not the real world. That's not what we live in. And that should not be a case for anyone getting something different. Each case has its own merits and its own rationale. So I just wanted it to be clear that this request wasn't because you just said, well, we didn't think it was fair because this person got something. That's not how I have.
Maybe that's a bad way to put it.
Okay.
But
okay. Thanks, Tom.
when we first go in there and you're told nobody is getting more than 2%, change it or I will. So we did.
And I can appreciate that. And that's why I asked last week when you said it was 70,000. I personally would have said, liked you guys to stuck with your guns. But the reason it got changed in that was because you guys sent in the revised one with the 55 and Chris didn't have any other thing other than the last request of 55 until Rod sent in the one after we had our meeting last week. So it's up to me. I have no problem. It doesn't mean that's going to be our recommendation, but we'll
I'll wait for your recommendation.
We'll put the 70 in as a request because in most cases, as you know, if you decided to go to the floor and the request only showed 55, I don't know about our new moderator, but our last moderator would never let you do that.
No, and that's all we're looking for. We're looking for the amount of $70,000 to go to town meeting.
No, okay, that may not be our recommendation, but I have no problem with, since the request was submitted that we change that departmental request back to the original Board of Health departmental request. Doesn't mean that's what we're gonna commit to, Tom, as a recommendation, but I
Exactly.
have no problem changing it back to the 70,000 as the department request.
Okay, thank you.
Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Took us a long way to get there, but we got there.
Is there anything else on the budget that you were,
Not at this point. As we start to go through the recommendations, I'm sure we may have some questions back on landfill and that type of stuff, but if we do, we'll send you a note before next Thursday's meeting,
okay,
okay?
we'll make ourselves available for next.
Don't leave yet, because there might be some other questions, so don't leave yet. Peter, any members of the committee have any questions?
No, I'll wait till we get into the budgeting process and we start to do our recommendations and we can talk further on it.
All right, thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, same with me.
Okay, Nancy?
I just want to address one of the questions you asked Mr. Thomas about, value to the town. Because I'm not getting into rates and all that good stuff. I certainly support going to full-time. And quite frankly, I'm being selfish. I want to know when the Stormwater Committee, especially the chairman, is going to get some assistance. What we know is when we hired the first TA, our, Mrs. Brady was going to be split 50-50, Board of Selectmen and TA. Well, the workload was so huge, that didn't happen. We hired part-time staff. I was going to get some help with stormwater. That went to a full-time position. I still don't have any help with stormwater other than the amount of time I get from the office manager at the Board of Health. Well, what we all know is when COVID came along, there wasn't any extra time, and stormwater was not a priority. Everything that I rely on relative to whether it's a stormwater permit decision or ongoing inspections once a project is permitted, or whether it's doing site visits and tramping through the woods and everything, I rely on that engineer. Additional hours for that engineer are critical. I'm not getting additional staff as far as clerical. I do most of my own, okay? I can help with minutes, and I'm not complaining, but I'm saying we have created positions that I was supposed to get a couple of hours. I get nothing. And I'll call it the prime professional that the whole stormwater program is predicated on, the person who has to go out there and look at stuff, there's none of us are qualified to do it. Yeah, we all have specialties. We only got one engineer. He has to review all the plans. He's the one that has to go out and witness the perks and everything else. So that has got to be looked at because a couple of plans came in relative to the stormwater, a pilot agreement and a solar farm. Well, he hasn't had time to look at it. And I understand COVID is the absolute priority, but I'm just hoping that hopefully we can return to normal. Somewhere down the road, I'm going to get some assistance, and if it's a few more hours for him, or he can take more of the other stuff, and I can get some help with existing staff. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not looking for a fortune, but I know what he does. He's the only professional engineer we have. And I hate the thought of losing him. And I'm not saying he's going anywhere, but I can also say, we have now all lived through losing a key person about 3 years ago. Extremely difficult, a terrible loss. I don't want to lose him because we'd have to start over. And quite frankly, with all the projects ongoing, if he were fortunate enough to go somewhere else and get a big job and whatever, and certainly I wouldn't begrudge that, we would have to hire engineers at an hourly rate until we could fill that position. It's very expensive. So, you know, that's where I'm coming from this thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm trying to separate the two things. Separate the value of the additional hours, which I don't think there's going to be any disagreement as we come out of COVID that we as a society need to change our outlook on our health departments because we were, as a society, unprepared for what we just went through. So I don't think there's any disagreement on the additional hours. It's how we get there. That the process needs to be cleaned up. We need to streamline it. We need to make sure people get aligned with it and not, so we don't have these discussions here. My opinion, this should have been all handled. And I know we're in a transition in town too, and it's a different year, and all should have been handled before it comes before the finance committee to make a recommendation. So,
I think Selectman Hull has a
yeah,
question.
Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Schwab. Mrs. Goulart. I hope that the compassion and the logical argument that you just made, you will make that same argument at a Board of Selectmen meeting. Because hopefully we will revisit this issue and sit down with the Board of Health and Mr. Gales and relook at what he does in his contract and how we pay him and the hours that he works. I do have a question, Mr. Schwartz.
Yes.
He currently is under the oversight of the Board of Selectmen. So if you increase his.
No, this is we're talking about the health
I'm
agent,
talking about-
not ADA.
I'm
Yeah.
talking about the engineer.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about.
I'm talking about Mr. Pillen.
Mr. Pilling.
Right,
Yes. Okay. Okay.
right.
Yeah, he's under I think he works directly under the Board of Health, right?
Yes, it does.
Directly under the Board of Health.
Hey,
So
Ed,
his-
Yes.
I don't want to be a party pooper, but I kind of feel like we're getting away from the scope of the finance meeting. And I think we're starting to talk about people and not positions. And I kind of think that we're getting a little away from the scope of what we're here to do tonight.
But I think I know where Mr. Hall's going, and it's more about the scope of how they decide what the rate is versus
I get that. I
Yeah.
understand.
it wasn't about the person, it was about where the position falls.
No, I
Right.
understand.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, so let me just finish that one last piece, Kevin, and then we'll
Okay.
move on.
Fair
All right.
enough.
Yeah, so it is a Board of Health position.
Correct.
But pay scales in the town all fall under the Board of Selectmen. The position doesn't, but the pay does.
And we signed it on.
Yeah, right. So I think that's what, yeah, and I think, I agree with you. I hope that the Board of Selectmen put this on their agenda and have another productive discussion about it for reasons outside of just financial, because I think we have to look at it as what's in the best interest of the town, and then we'll figure out the rest of the financial part of it. Like Mrs. Goulart said, Mr. Pilling has been a great asset to the town. And anyone you talk to in town that's had dealings with him, from septic to other health issues that, because people forget all of the different things that fall under the health agent. It's not just, tracking COVID, or there's a lot of issues that fall under the health agent. And in my time here, he's been very effective with what he's done for the town. So I think I'm hoping that you guys will have a further discussion on it.
I think the fact that you told Mr. Pius that you're going to put that number in, I think is a big step forward. It brings us back to the beginning.
Yeah.
So we can forget about what happened in the meantime and
Yeah.
start out in the beginning.
Yeah, so on that point, to Mr. Perry's point, I think the only other open budget issue that we wanted to discuss was the 88 portion. And I know we all received Mr. Gale's information at the request. Kevin, was that what you were looking for on the last email that came through? I really didn't have a chance to review the last one.
Basically, what he did is clarified that the $30,000 grant that was utilized was for a self-evaluation. I was always left under the impression it was going to be an outside company coming in and kind of evaluating the town for ADA compliance, and then something would be, given to us, provided to us as a report indicating. It was a self-evaluation. It's a totally different scope of what I expected, but it is what it is, and I hope I'm not talking out of school there. But that's how I understand it was performed.
My understanding is different, Mr. Perry. We hired a company called KMA,
That's correct.
right?
And they did the self-evaluation. the report is listed as a self-evaluation. So was it something that we evaluated ourselves, or this company came in and said, this is where you're not in compliance, this is our recommendations? I don't know how it really came about. I'm unclear
Yeah,
about it.
they came into town and I was, as well as the ADA, I worked with them a
Yeah,
little bit. And they told us what we were not in compliance with. So they
Okay.
did an evaluation of all our buildings, the parks, playgrounds.
so that report is the result of that.
Yes, it is.
Okay, understood. It's just, I needed some clarification on that, and thank you for doing so.
Thank you.
So, so that answers your question on that. I know, Mr. Pacheco and I talked earlier that we really have a philosophical difference on ADA as it is set up in town. I go back to the same discussion we had last year, and I think that's another one, Kevin, to your point, when we get to that budget, we can have further discussion on it.
Yeah,
on
I agree.
how much we fund. I think
I
some of it comes down to philosophy, some of it comes down to what can we afford?
I think this year, everything has to be about what we can afford. Philosophies this year in private business is the same. If the money's not there, the money's not there.
Yeah, so before we get into recommendations, with what we learned tonight and the changes actually that the police chief gave us really changes our number drastically. I'm going to recommend, unless you guys want to do it, I would say that we just take all of next meeting, and next meeting is strictly a recommendation meeting, and we don't get off track. We just do every recommendation. We start at 6:30 until we get down to a number that gets us like we have in the past, and then we'll finish everything up. I mean, we could spend a half hour doing that tonight, but it'd take us 15 minutes, and we'll have a more accurate number of where we need to get to. And then Mr. Roach, as he does every year, will track us as we go through each budget and make our recommendation. He'll tell us each and every time how much more we have to reduce, how much we have left, because he's always on my right when we do that, and I can always look at his paper. So it's a little different this time. So so if everybody's good with that, there you go. He's got his notepad. As every good accountant does, he has his notepad to the right. So if everybody's good with that, then I'll go around the room and see if there's anything anyone wants to add. Tom, I know Tom Ferry's here. Tom, we're going to look at free cash for the request that you had as we go through the recommendation next week. We may ask to push some of those to the fall until the new free cash comes in, depending on where we finish on the budget. But I think there was a question the other night in regards to the mower. Was it somebody had a question on the mower?
I questioned it.
Yeah, so Kevin, you want to ask Tom the question while he's here?
Yeah, hey, Tom. So what I asked, and I may be mistaken, but I thought within the past probably 5 years, had we not bought one of these mowers already with the extended arm?
We have, I believe it's more than 5 years.
Yeah, it
And
might be.
We trained the town with it. If you can imagine, we took all the heavy stuff down, brought the town back to what you see it now.
Yeah,
That really knocked the life out of it.
right.
It's still working. The parts are hard to get.
Yep,
Depending on what part breaks, it can take like nine weeks to get back.
right.
So it can be out of service for quite a while,
Yep.
but
Did
it's
we-
in running condition right now.
Okay, did we exercise any trade value if we were to trade it, or it's old enough to where nobody wants to see it?
No, that's the ticket. Right now, it's worth something to sell to make up for the switch.
Right, but it wouldn't be a trade. It would be something we sell independently.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's why I asked, and time does fly. What seemed like 5 years to me was probably 10. So that's why I wanted to ask, because I thought we had got a long reach mower already, and
Right.
that was it. Okay, all right, thank you.
Selectman Hull has a question.
Okay, Selectman Hull?
Yes, in looking over the warrant articles that Mr. Ferry has proposed, question I have, we had quite a discussion with Chief McGee in regards to lease to buy. And we have some pretty big ticket items here from Highway Department. Is there any way some of these items could be purchased, leased to buy, rather than out and out numbers that we're looking at, $100,000, $122,000?
So Tom, like the utility tractor that's over $100,000, is there like a 3-year program that you could go on that? Or that's much more costly to us if we do it that way, right?
The tractor itself is 64,000.
So the boom part of that is another 58,000, I believe. Mr.
Right,
Perry.
the boom is almost as much as a tractor, right? So I could look into the option to lease, but if we split them up, like I'm hearing that might be recommended, so you're looking at 64,000. Are you interested in a lease on that?
Yeah. I'd be more interested on what it means like a forestry truck that's $100,000. Forestry trucks, how long do we keep those normally?
Depends on how you store them is the biggest thing, and a new one is 197,000. I'm suggesting appropriate the money so I can get a used one. It's most likely going to be around 50, 60,000, for a good used one.
How many years would you get out of a good used one? Just on average.
I see no reason why I can't get the vehicle to 30 years old like we're doing with the other ones.
So, because I look at it and say, is that something, if we're gonna get 30 years out of it, do we take it, that's a capital investment. It's not
Correct.
something we in place. So, I just want to have all options on the table for us as we go forward. Mr. Hall.
Mr. Ferry, you say a forestry truck, what does that forestry truck do? Because I heard Mr. Chief McGee say tonight he has 3 forestry trucks. So are we talking the same function or are we talking a different function?
The forestry truck I'm talking about is the boom that can reach 75 to 80 feet up to take down a tree. Mr. McGee is talking about a forestry truck, is those smaller trucks to attack fires, brush fires with.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom. Any other question on the list of warrant articles? And we will, the biggest difference on the selectmen's recommendations this year versus last year, we do not have anything that is a raise and appropriate in our special articles. In the past, we've had article requests that really should have fallen under raise and appropriate. So when we look at the operating budget, we are truly looking at the operating budget in that, in the case of the total number request. Mike, did you have something you want to add? Because you saw you give me a look when I said that.
So yeah, and just to be clear, like in article number 20, based on the FinCom's conversation, I believe last week, the second year lease payment of the street sweeper was actually introduced as an article. So going back to the stormwater budget, based on funding that through free cash and potentially not raise and appropriate, that would further
Decrease. So that 50,000 is in 2 places right now.
Yes, yes.
Okay, that's good to know. Well, that's good. Between the police now, we found $160,000 of the 500,000 we're over the levy limit. So that's a positive. Mrs. Goulart?
I have 2 questions, but the first comment, at the selectmen's meeting last night, you were going over the articles and we were trying to figure out what that transfer was.
Yes.
So I looked it up. By the way, those minutes didn't make the annual town report for 2017, but I got a printed copy. Mr. Ferry, are you still there?
I'm still here. I can barely hear you though.
Oh, how do you?
Oh, no, he's on Zoom.
Oh, okay. So, Tom, at the selectmen's meeting last night, they were discussing an article to transfer money from leftovers from this special town meeting, October of 2017. Tom, when I looked that up, that article was $160,000 that we got to do the sidewalk project, Pearl, on Somerset Avenue at the corner of Main and Center Street west to Stonegate Landing. And then we got the grant money. So I think the money on the article that you're asking to be transferred is what's left of the $160,000. That was the money we had sort of upfront in case we didn't get the grant. Isn't that correct?
I believe that's a separate one, because the one I'm aware of that's pending under my control is the 118,000 to match the complete streets. And I believe that was to do the same thing that money was for, to take in land and engineering stuff.
Right, but we didn't, going back to my original statement, we didn't spend the whole 160.
No,
So I did print out that section. It was, believe it or not, it was Article 44. That must have been the record-breaking special town meeting. But anyway,
Right.
I will get it to you. Yeah, so that was the explanation that I found when I was able to get those minutes. The only other question I had, do we know right now how much money we need to raise and appropriate outside of the levy limit to cover bonded indebtedness? Now, I know we're going to pay assuming we have enough free cash, we'll pay the police, the mortgage payment for the police station out of that. So let's set that one aside. Does anybody know how much money we need to raise and appropriate through debt exclusion this year, right? Based on everything we know right now.
Chris, what's that number? I know it's 394 is the debt exclusion on the police station. It's, I think it's like, was it there it is,
657, $12. That includes the two exclusions for the school buildings
Yeah, the two school buildings and the
and the police station.
The 300, the money for the police station is in the 600,000?
Yes.
That's correct.
So what's the two school building? Just the school, please.
Sorry, Yancy, let me see if I've got that broken down here.
Tell you roughly, yes.
Budget overview.
394. It's roughly $260,000.
Yeah, I have that breakdown on one of these worksheets. I apologize, I can't find it for you right this second.
That's fine, Chris. It's roughly $260,000.
Okay. That's my assessor's hat question.
Yeah, no problem. No
Thank
problem.
you.
Yep. Any more questions of the committee before we wrap up for the night? Catherine? Kevin?
I
Robert?
apologize. I have nothing.
That's all right, Kevin. I did it all day long. I couldn't get off on mute when I was on Zoom.
Yeah, I had to step away from the computer for a minute. I apologize.
Robert?
Nothing at this time.
Thanks. Peter?
No, good.
Board of Selectmen?
I don't have any questions.
Town Administrator?
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah. Anyone else who was online? I know Mr. Woods, Ms. Sylvia, anyone? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Have a good night.
Thank you all. Is there a motion to adjourn for the Finance Committee?
So moved.
Second.
On the motion, Robert?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Catherine?
That's a lemon, honey lemon.
Next Thursday. Board of Selectmen?
Yes, I have a question. Are we meeting next Tuesday then? I know that Brett
So
said,
No.
when we discussed the board of selectmen meeting last night, we discussed the next time we FinCom would, so it would be next Thursday, which would give all of us.
Yep. Yep. I do say, I feel like we're in a little bit better position now than where we were at the beginning of the night with the
Yeah.
discussions that we had. And I think I feel a little bit better than I did coming in, so.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you all. Oh, you guys have to adjourn, right?
I'll
Make a
entertain a
motion that
motion.
we adjourn.
Yeah, I'll step down and second that motion. How do you vote?
Aye.
Ken Chico votes aye also.
Thank you all.
Good night.
Thank you.